Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Nightmares Nightly. It happens the same every year. All the houses in the neighborhood don their yards with skeletons and spooky lighting, carved pumpkins, paper cutouts of bats. They dress the properties up with just as much enthusiasm as the kids in their costumes, all for the sole purpose of basking in the spirit of Halloween. The house 2 doors down always goes all out. Strobes, inflatables, artificial fog, the whole 9 yards. It attracts kids from all across town, serving as some kind of meeting point for the trick-or-treaters. With pillowcases slung over their shoulders and plastic jack-o'-lanterns in their hands, they start their proud march. Every princess and zombie trying to get the biggest haul of their life. Every year, I turn off the lights and pretend I'm not home, sitting in front of the TV with my dog for the annual marathon of slasher films. I'm a bit of a Scrooge this time of year. I don't really decorate my house. I don't even pass out candy. The street bustles with the combination of laughter and screams, each child and teenager trying to make each year more memorable than the last. From the darkness of my home, I catch glimpses from the window on the commercial breaks. Everything seems festive and normal, all except the house across the street. I didn't notice it at first. The house across the street is abandoned, almost a derelict at this point. It was a modest loft house before it went unkempt, with a little garage and a big stretch of porch to walk up before you hit the front door. There's a rocking chair on one side of the door and a window on the other. I imagine it would have been a nice setup back in the day. Nice fall day, sip some cider on the covered porch in the rocker, hear the television from the open window. Now, the windows are boarded up, and the garage door sits lopsided on its hinges, and there's so many old twigs and leaves matted on the porch roof, it looks like it'll cave at any moment. The rocking chair sits empty, dust and mold collecting over the years. No one's lived there for a long time. I don't even think it's on the market. It remains its old, weathered self all year round, and everything seems fine. But as trick-or-treating comes to a close, that changes. I have it narrowed down to the last 20 minutes. Every year from 5 to 7, the kids go up and down the street raising hell, hopped up on sugar and the Halloween spirit. The old house stays dark and quiet almost the whole time. But at 6:40, that porch light kicks on. In the flickering light, a little orange bowl appears in front of the door. A few feet away, the rocking chair is no longer empty. There's a clown sitting there. His getup is crude and old, like an alcoholic uncle threw on a cheap jester one-piece. The eyes are closed, but the eyelids are painted. Cartoonish eyes staring at you while it sits perfectly still. A rusty kitchen knife held in a frozen hand. A little paper sign is stuck to the door, and in big red letters it reads, "Take 1." I've never seen anybody physically set it up. It's just there. One minute it's dark and the next the light is on. It's almost like someone ran up when you weren't looking and propped the stuff up as a gag. But I've never caught anybody, never seen anybody in the act. It just happens. The thing is, that little orange bowl, it's loaded to the top. Not with dollar store candy either. King-size bars. The first time, I thought maybe the property owner was trying to give back for having such an eyesore year-round. Or maybe a homeless guy was trying to have a little fun. Scare the kids. That sort of thing. But it shows up every year, and is exactly the same every time. The same scuzzy clown, the same candy bowl, and the same written sign. The most unsettling thing is the window by the door. All year the windows in the house are boarded up, but when that light kicks on, that window opens. No boards, no nothing. The faded drapes on the inside sway in the night breeze, but that's all you can see. It's pitch black when you look in there, There's just that damn clown with his painted eyelids in the open window. People started to go missing. Articles in the paper would show the next day. Some kid or teenager wouldn't make it home after going door to door looking for candy. Every year, without fail, there would be a new face to look out for. I would think of the house across the street immediately, but the strange thing is, I seemed to be the only one to see it. The porch light, the clown, the bowl of bars. I talked to some of the neighbors, and everyone thinks I'm crazy. It got to the point to where I called the police. I was sure they'd kick down that door, find a body or at least some kind of evidence. Maybe bones or clothing, something. I called them twice. Twice they came out and they searched the whole damn house. They found nothing. Absolutely nothing. No human remains, murder weapon, not even footprints. Like nobody has been there in ages. They tell me the next time I cry wolf, I'll get a ticket. And this year, at 6:40, I watch from the window. The light kicks on, and they're there. Clown, bowl, paper sign, open window. I see some kids coming down the street, both dressed as animatronics. They look tired and ready to go, but they see the light and they go to the door. They see the giant bars and jump with excitement. They read the sign, then look at the clown, and they wait for the jump scare. But he just sits there with a knife-held limp and a black painted stare. Each of them pick out one, but there's a longing as they look to the bowl. It seems like their conscience gets the better of them, and they leave without succumbing to greed. Heading off the porch, they pass a teen in a hoodie and skull face paint. He pushes past rudely, almost knocking over one of the kids. They seem upset, but they don't look back. They don't notice the clown behind them. The painted lids raise, revealing staring, bloodshot eyes. This year, I pass out candy. I turn on my light, and I'm out with my own bowl, waving the kids over, waving them to safety. The eyes of the clown look at me menacingly, like a warning, but it doesn't last long. The teenager is stuffing the bars in his pockets, as many as he can hold. I show the kids my bowl of suckers, tell them the haul's over, to take as much as they want. They're ecstatic, too happy and focused to look back at the slowly standing clown. The teenager leaves, and arms of nothing but bone shoot through the open window. One grabs his arm, the other planting a hand over his mouth to silence. The clown is there in an instant, eyes wild, the knife digging deep, stabbing over and over. The kids take handful after handful. I show them the silly paint I put on, and if I have to, I'll ask them about their costumes. The teenager fights, but it's over just as soon as it started. The clown stabs and rips, the old blade eviscerating crudely. The arms are already pulling him in. His screams blend with others in the distance. My eyes tear up, and the kids get worried. I dump the candy in their bags, trying to stay joyous. My hands are shaking, but I play it off. I call my dog to the front door so they can see the silly spider costume I made him wear. Their laughter drones out what they don't want to hear. The clown grabs the teenager by the ankles, and the skeletal arms help, pushing him into the dark, abandoned house. He leaves the knife sticking from the torso, arterial blood staining his ratty costume. When the feet are sucked in, he slams the window shut. For a moment, he looks at me. His stare is cold and terrifying, but I don't look for too long. Across the street, the porch light shuts off, and it's all gone. I still feel the eyes on me, but there's nothing there. Other houses seem to take it as their cue, and one by one, trick-or-treating comes to an end. The kids grin with their heavy bags and wave goodbye, going back the way they came. I'm left at the front door, and the air is suddenly cooler. I look at the porch ahead and I almost swear I can see him still sitting there in the dark. But when a car passes, the headlights show an empty chair. I take my empty bowl and shoo my dog inside, realizing I'll either have to do this again or move. I still have some time to figure it out. Until next year, happy Halloween. They say that if you want a first date to be effective, you should make it a horror film. Apparently something about the brain chemicals released makes people more attracted to each other, which is a tad manipulative if you think about it too long. But hey, if it works, it works. However, this is far from the first date. It might just be the last if I don't do absolutely everything that I can. If a horror film can get a girl attached, this might just make us fused at the waist. Getting tickets was surprisingly easy. It moves around the country fairly often, and whenever it arrives, everyone flocks to get a load of the latest horror experience. But Lisa was friends with the guy running the venue, so it worked itself out. No one scorns a bit of polite corruption when it benefits them. Still, I paid for the tickets, $25 each, and from what I've heard, that makes it vastly underpriced. Thomas Davis, calls a tightly suited woman at the waiting room desk as a worker leads a middle-aged man into the back room. For a horror attraction, the waiting room is surprisingly peaceful. A lot of places try to spook you early, with actors and tacky decorations draped everywhere. That was certainly what I expected when I walked in, but it seems they prefer to keep it professional, at least on this end. You see, the frights aren't really for us. They split every pair in two, with one becoming a part of the attraction as to give their partner a more personalized scare. Horror with a human touch. That's their slogan. Jack Amos, the secretary says. Another boy going to the back room. Still a few more to go before me. Like clockwork, as one person leaves, another enters the waiting room. This time a graying old man who chooses to sit next to me, despite the few empty seats. You can tell with some people, when they're going to speak. They sort of look at you to make sure you won't bite, I suppose, and then their mouths rest open, as if warming up the machinery. Who do you have on the other side? I ask, preempting the old man. My grandson. It's a treat for his birthday, he says, a cheerful smile stretching out the lines of his face and pulling his stubble tight. Birthday, huh? How old is he? 15. 15? A tad young, but looking around the waiting room, I see a little girl waiting excitedly beside her mother. Like I said, this side isn't for the scare, so they allow it. At the other entrance, it's purely 18 and up. He's always been a bit of a horror buff, the old man says, trying to keep up the conversation, but my attention is still on that child. It's allowed, but I can't say I understand it. What kind of parent brings their child to this sort of thing? I don't consider myself much of a moral busybody, but that still doesn't sit right with me. Cute little girl, too. Long blonde hair with a pink bow. I wager she'll come out of the room sobbing before long. Though, then again, despite people periodically going in, I've never seen someone leave. They must go out through the back entrance, I suppose. Do you think they let us choose the theme? I ask, pitying him. I've always hated people who are mean to old people, and he's clearly lonely, but actually having to be the one to keep someone else entertained was never my thing. Not sure, but if they do, I'm gonna ask for something based on the Saw films. I don't exactly get the appeal, but my grandson adores them. I never quite got gore films either. It's just a cheap way of getting a scare. Not even a scare, it's just disgusting. I'll probably ask for the Human Centipede. My girlfriend can't get enough of those awful films. Caulfield family, the board secretary calls. The little girl in the pink bow and her distracted mother take their time in going through the door to the next room, and like clockwork, Another customer sits and waits. Still, how much can they possibly do? They let people in every few minutes. They can't spend much time on each customer. The old man tilts his head. I reckon they have multiple rooms, one for each group. There's probably a fair few members in the back room. True, I didn't think of that. Plus, I doubt they'd get such great reviews if they half-assed it. I always love hearing old people swear. It simultaneously feels wrong, like hearing Father Christmas swear, but also it feels like, after how long they've lived, they've damn well earned the right. And the old man was correct about the reviews. You never hear anything bad about it. If the rush for tickets wasn't evidence enough, you just needed to look at their online review pages. Come to think of it, I don't think I've seen a review lower than 5 stars. Michael McCormick? The secretary calls. My turn, I say to the old man, a little uneasy about leaving him alone. He's clearly lonely, and by how late he was coming in, he's going to be waiting a long while. But I can't keep Lisa or the staff waiting, now can I? A smiley staff member in an orange shirt meets me at the door and leads me through. As he opens it, I get my first glimpse into the next room. Just a hallway, brightly lit with white walls, the corner turning off past my line of sight. He gestures for me to go in through the front, and I do so, even though I have no clue where I'm supposed to go if the path splits off. He stops me as the hallway widens into the first room, which is essentially a smaller version of the waiting room without any chairs. At the desk sits an even more bored-looking secretary in an even tighter suit. Just the usual, Vivian, the staff member says, plastic smile still on his face. Are any of the consultants free? Mr. Ramirez isn't seeing anyone at the moment, she says. That's room 4. Thank you. He leads me to the next door. This one is more in line with the horror aesthetic than the last. A thick metal door with one of those twisty handles you see on a submarine. As I step through, the door closes behind me, and I notice there is no handle. I guess I was right about leaving through the other side. Room 4, like she said, the staff member says, leaving me to continue my walk without him. The lights are bright. A bit too bright, like the fluorescents in a nightclub bathroom. On the walls are these foam boards with alternate lines of ridges, soundproofing, like you see in YouTubers' backgrounds. Very professional. Don't want the noise from the fright room distracting the people waiting. I get to room 4 and knock, but the door drifts open before my fist hits it the 3rd time. Not metal, a wooden door like in the waiting room, this time in cold, clinical white. Inside is a tall Hispanic man with black hair splotched with gray. He calls me in and points me to a wooden chair. This whole thing feels like a doctor's appointment. What are you going to prescribe to me, Doc? So, first of all, I'm going to need you to sign this. He hands me a thick pile of papers stapled together. What's this? Oh, boring legal stuff. Don't you worry about it. I just need you to sign your name here, he says in an upward tone, pointing to a line. And then I need you to make a verbal declaration of understanding. I will read a sentence, and you can say, I agree, and we get into the consultation. Or you cannot say that, and this whole thing ends. Though I will remind you that this experience is non-refundable. I nod. I'm not the type to get cold feet, especially when I'm footing the bill. I, Michael McCormick, understand and agree to the term that once I go through the door at the end of the hall, I am bound to follow the rules of and complete the experience. In other words, once you go through that door, there is no going back. I agree. Very good. He drums his hands on the contract before putting it onto his desk. Now, I'm to be your fright consultant. Basically, my job is to help you create the perfect horror experience for... He checks his notes. Miss Lisa Monroe. Do you have any initial ideas for what you want to do? Most clients come in basing it on a movie, video game, or book that their partner likes. I was figuring Human Centipede, but I'm guessing you don't have the time or resources to do much with something so ambitious. Well, that streamlines things. And don't you worry, We are more than capable of providing for all our clients' needs. Let me just send an email, and you are ready to go to the fright room to prep your personalized experience." After a few beeps and the clatter of a mechanical keyboard, Mr. Ramirez leads me down the hallway past rows of advisory rooms. If I had to estimate, I'd say there were 10 in total. We get to the end of the hall, where we meet another submarine-like door. "Room 4, once again. They will be prepared for you." The door slams behind me, once again with no handle to open. Point of no return it is then, exactly like the contract says. Turning around, I see I'm in another corridor. Once again, 10 rooms, with a door at the end of the corridor. But the lights are dimmer here, and they flicker. I'm on the customer side, the back entrance. Time to set up my personalized horror experience. Time to scare Lisa. She's gonna love it. Room 4. I search the door numbers until I find it. Even the fonts are creepier now, and twisted Roman numerals like scratch marks. The door opens with a click as I twist the cold metal knob. Inside stood 3 people in orange uniform shirts, with wide plastic grins on their faces. "Just through the next door," a woman says, gesturing to another door from the current room. "You people like your doors, I've noticed." "Just through the next door," she repeats. Behind that door, the lights are brighter, and a balding man in a suit sits next to what looks like a dentist chair without that blinding light. "Welcome, Mr. McCormick. Please, take a seat." I half expect him to adjust it, but the chair is just the right size as it is. This is the setup room, what the experiencer sees. We just need to get you prepared first. "Right, I suppose you've got a costume or something? Face paint?" "Something a little more high budget than that," he chuckles. "We spare no expense in making an immersive experience for our clients." He pulls a small mic from his desk and murmurs into it. A staff member enters, locking the door behind her, still beaming ear to ear. In her hands, she has a chart, which she passes to the head technician. Now, the process is fairly simple, as these things go. It looks impressive, really, but all it is a few stitches on either end. Stitches? That's a bit severe, isn't it? You did opt for the human centipede, sir. My heart sinks. A good one, but really, tell me about the costume. The balding man doesn't laugh, and the staff member doesn't stop smiling. This isn't a joking matter, sir. Please, just relax. It will take a few moments. What? Come on, I'm not stupid. You can't do this. It was tricky, yes, having to recruit people on such short notice. But don't you worry, sir. It was well within our means and no burden at all when it comes to customer satisfaction. My hands sweat into the side rest. I notice the keys hanging on the staff member's side. But, I stutter, looking for excuses. Won't it hurt? Well, we'll anesthetize you for the initial procedure, but there may be some discomfort afterwards. You're insane. You signed the contract. It was all there in black and white. You agreed to it. But I didn't read it. That's your fault, not ours. The technician interrupts. Stacy, hold him down while I administer the anesthesia. We really don't have the time to waste. She lumbers over, still smiling, and I keep my eyes trained on her keys. Her manicured hands dig into my arms, and my heart races ever faster. The key. I've got to get the key. She puts all her weight into me, her sickly sweet breath puffing in my face, her white teeth wide in front of me. I thrash my head forward, clashing with her jaw. She fumbles backwards, holding her face, and my hand shoots for her side, but a second pair of hands claw into my back. With adrenaline-fueled rage, I push backwards and slam the technician into the wall. The keys. The staff member kneels on the floor, holding her face as blood drips through her fingers. With one almighty kick, I send her reeling, and the sound of the technician getting up rings out behind me. Before I'm able to think, and before he is able to yell, the keys are in my hand, and I'm fumbling them against the lock. Move, hands, move. In my peripheral vision, I see the balding man approach, and the key clacks into place just as he reaches out a hand. I slam the door behind me, locking it. The 2 remaining staff members don't have time to react, and I lock them away too. The door is at the end of the hallway. I sprint towards it as Ramirez's words echo in my head. Once you go through that door, there is no going back. I thrash my hands against the metal bulkhead once I notice the lack of handle. It must open from the outside, from the customer side. There has to be an exit, there must. How else would the staff get out? I could wait for the customers to come in when Lisa comes to see what they have done. But what if another customer comes through, staff in tow? No, I have to get out now. There must be a way. I notice a keyhole on the bulkhead and try the key in hand to no avail. All I can do is check the rooms one by one. Surely, one of them must have the right key. Room 4. That's where I was supposed to go. Let's start at room 1. Nowhere better to start than the beginning. I test the cold metal handle. Unlocked. The first thing that hits me is the smell. Rotting meat. The room is decorated like an abattoir, stark white and freezing cold, with cruel metal hooks on the walls. On each one is a carcass. Pig, cow, chicken, and something else. It's limp, skinless and veiny. Its head is missing, and it looks almost hollow. But something deep in my mind knows exactly what it is, what it was. The desecrated lump of flesh is wrong, not just morally. It feels factually wrong. I'm not supposed to see this. No one is. Mr. Davis, middle-aged. They brought him in first. Vomit decorates my shoes, and I close the door behind me before a second spurt makes itself known. All that matters is getting out, finding the key. Still, I lock the door. He shouldn't be on display like that. Room number 2. I try not to consider what could be inside. No use breaking twice. The door creaks open, and this time the sound strikes me first. Crying, small, pathetic sobs. Jack Amos is restrained in a straitjacket, wire crisscrossing through red holes around his mouth. His eyes tear into me, a mix of hatred and terror. I scan the room quick as I can. No key. I lock the door. I want to help him, but there's nothing I can do. I don't want to keep that image in my mind, so I keep it permanently out of sight and out of earshot. Thank God for the soundproofing. What's behind door number 3? I ask in the voice of an overexcited game show host. I have to laugh. If I don't, I don't know if I can carry on. I try to recount who it will be next. Who was the next person to go through the doors? I remember, and this one is particularly important. But I have to get the key. All that matters is the key. When I open the third door, it isn't the smell or the sound, but the image that stops me in my path. I would recognize that pink bow anywhere. She was laying in a bed fit for a girl her age, and it would almost be peaceful if her head wasn't backwards and her skin covered in wounds. It seems her father is an Exorcist fan. A key sits on the bed in front of the girl. I take it and close the door behind me, locking away my guilt. I have the key. Nothing is stopping me from leaving now, but the richest of fruits has turned to ashes in my mouth. No image can grasp my mind. All I see is her. I hear the door at the other end of the corridor begin to open, and I look to my escape. I run and I keep running, pushing past confused people in the customer side waiting room. The second I get outside, I break down. That's the story. I couldn't face my girlfriend after that. I've tried therapy, I'm on my 5th therapist now. To this day, I can't stand a horror movie. I go all out on Halloween. Every year in mid-September, I scout the decorations of every superstore and annual spooky shop alike in search of the latest and greatest decorations for the holiday season. I spend weeks transforming my house into an icon for Halloween, so people from all over town and even the town over can drive down the block with their families, eyes wide at my collection of decorations. Lights, inflatables, fog, and creepy music. There's an abandoned house on my street, and a few others don't decorate, so I like to go the extra mile. We set up a security camera on the doorstep to document all of the costumes and call out the best on social media. It's a hit every year. I've seen masks, makeup, and costumes of all kinds. However, I saw something last night that makes me question if I'll ever decorate my house again. We were in the final throes of trick-or-treating. There was only a handful of kids left, the crowds drifting away. My husband and daughter had returned from their own route while I passed out candy. They were now sorting through her haul on the living room floor. I was trying to empty my bowl so I could end the night. I could see the last 2 kids down the road, the only ones that hadn't come to my house yet. 2 animatronics walking together, followed by a skeleton teenager who looked too old to be going door to door. After awing at my spectacle, they came my way, pointing at my hanging skeletons and creepy window decals. They held out their bags with toothy grins, and I loaded the kids up with everything I had. I reminded them to avoid all fresh food and open packages, and pointed to the camera so they could pose. They thanked me and skipped away, with the teenager saying something rude as they passed. When the skeleton teenager arrived, I showed him my empty bowl, and he said some words I'd rather not say, so I shrugged them off. "Better luck next year," I said, and he followed the boys, after giving me the finger. As they left, I saw a figure across the street, standing in the artificial fog. It looked like a kid in a fuzzy costume, although what exactly I couldn't see. I smiled and waved them over, pulling an unopened bag from behind the door. They just stood there for a while, and I coaxed them over by opening the bag. They shivered and crossed the street, other kids paying them no mind. They moved slowly, creeping inches at a time. I couldn't tell who the costume was concealing, but I was patient with them. It looked like there was something wrong with their legs the way they shuffled, and the mask made them look straight ahead. When I got a better look at what they were wearing, I was impressed and unsettled at the same time. The kid was dressed as a sheepdog, but the costume looked very old. It was dirty, but I couldn't deny how good it looked otherwise, like it had been pulled straight from the TV set in the 90s. "Oh my gosh, I love your costume. Did your parents get that for you?" I asked, motioning for them to come closer. I had a handful of candy ready for them. The sheepdog stood frozen. They just stared. "What are you supposed to be this year, A puppy?" I asked cheerfully, keeping the awkwardness at bay. They were looking past me, inside the house. I shook the handful of candy to get their attention. "Don't say much, do you? That's all right. Happy Halloween," I said. They stayed put, but held out a crumpled paper bag. I brought it to them, unsure if there was a disability of some sort that I couldn't see. Closer now, I could see the dirt in the fur of the costume, and there was a smell, an awful, piercing stench. I pushed it off, thinking maybe the kid was going through a tough time at home. As I filled the kid's bag, I looked into their eyes, which were now very sharp and staring up at me. "Are you alone?" they said, but the voice wasn't like a child's. It was deep and raspy, like an old man. I jumped, but tried to play it off. "What's that, hun?" I said, leaning closer. Goosebumps covered my skin. "Who's in there?" they said, their deep groan of a voice giving me chills. Their large eyes looked past me again, then back up at me. This was a prank. It had to be. But the way it talked, the way it wheezed, it was too real to replicate. "Excuse me?" I stiffened and backed away, blocking their view. Behind the mask, around the eyes, it was dark red, like there was no skin. "Are you scared?" they asked. I called for my husband. "You should be going," I said. Down the road, I saw porch lights go out. I decided it was time to do the same. "Why? I'll have to come back." There was a beastly groan behind the mask. "Have a good night." I shut the door and killed the light. I waited a moment before looking out. The sheepdog was nowhere to be seen. My husband walked up, mouth full of candy, asking what I wanted. I went to explain, but shrugged and brushed it off. The next morning, I checked the tapes. Everything was fine until the sheepdog kid. It was all distorted and grainy, barely able to make out my altercation with them. But as the night went on after I went inside, the kid blinked in and out of view hourly through the night. Every time they would just stand there silently, eyes locked on the camera for minutes at a time. And I can still smell the rot on the front porch. Back when I was a kid, there was a legend in my town about a clockmaker. "Never stay out after midnight, or the clockmaker will get you," parents would whisper, mostly to rowdy teenagers staying out past their curfew. It was said that he once was an eccentric old man who ran a clock shop in the heart of town. One fall day in 1945, he appeared out of nowhere. Nobody knew for sure where the clockmaker came from, but some speculated that he was from Germany. Some of the old-timers even went as far as to claim that he was a former Nazi who had performed terrible experiments on people during World War II and was forced to go into hiding as soon as the war ended. Nevertheless, there was one thing that the old-timers agreed on, and that was that he was an odd fellow. Although, as I stated, he appeared seemingly out of nowhere, his shop somehow flourished, sparking rumors that he was dabbling into the occult. All the old-timers would claim that his clocks were beautifully handcrafted, from the grandfather clocks all the way down to the cuckoo clocks from wood never before seen by us country folks. Upon entering his shop, children and parents alike would gaze in wonder at the clock's intricate designs and all their quirky mechanisms. Anyway, where was I? Oh, as a result of his success, the clockmaker made several enemies, including one Bernie Toppler. Of course, not his real name. Now, old Bernie was the old clockmaker in town and was also very prosperous. That was, until the new clockmaker arrived. You see, Bernie had the distinguished honor of being the town drunk and was known to frequent the local bars at night and had a reputation for letting loose, so to speak, after one too many drinks. On one particular night, Bernie was at Bob's Tavern. After several drinks, all of his inhibitions went out the door, and he began to rant and rave at anybody who bothered to listen. Of course, nobody took him seriously at first. That was until a week later on Halloween night, 1963. On that fateful night in 1963, the local fire department and sheriff were called to a store fire, the clockmaker store, to be precise. Initially, the fire was blamed on rowdy teens hell-bent on causing mischief, but soon enough, the rumors began to float that Bernie and several other men were actually responsible for the fire. After the fire was extinguished, the sheriff and fire department began to swiftly look through the rubble and couldn't find the clockmaker's body anywhere. For several days after the fire, Several of the sheriff's men were placed there to guard the place in case the clockmaker returned. He never did. Well, not alive at least. The next night, several of the men guarding the shop claimed that at around midnight, all of the clocks began to chime loudly. But here's the thing. Most of the clocks were too damaged from the fire and were no longer functional. Naturally, this scared the men, and they refused to go anywhere near the clockmaker's shop. The following week, several of the town's men died under mysterious circumstances, including Bernie Toppler. Although the clockmaker's body was never found, it was confirmed through evidence gathered and witness testimony that indeed Bernie and his henchmen were responsible for the clockmaker's demise. Now, did I mention that there is a large clock located in the town square that the clockmaker built in order to show his gratitude to the people of this town? It is this clock in which the legend of the clockmaker was born. For you see, a year after the clockmaker's disappearance, people began to report being attacked by a shadowy figure near the clock. Some even speculated that the shadowy figure might have been the clockmaker himself. We have a ritual here that on Halloween night, if you stand in front of the clock and say his name several times before the clock strikes midnight, he'll appear. It is also said that whoever participates in the ritual will die a week later. It's just a rumor, of course. But tonight is Halloween night, and I thought I saw a group of young people gathered near the clock. Just in case, I think I'll keep an eye on them. Halloween was always a big deal in my small town. All through the month of October, Mayor Higgins would hold various events and attractions. Our town is so popular on Halloween that the mayor even had its official name changed to Hallows Crest. He was going to use Halloween Town, but obviously couldn't, due to copyright reasons. Hallows Crest sounded much better anyway. Everyone in town took it seriously too, and the spooky season everyone else talks about when they refer to October doesn't exist for us. It's more like spooky year, but every year. Nobody, however, took it as serious as Farmer Tom. Thomas Maynard was your average old MacDonald type of farmer, overalls and all. The man had acres upon acres of farmland, which he used to set up all sorts of attractions like corn mazes, pumpkin patches, haunted barn tours, and more. His most famous attractions, however, were his Halloween decorations. Nobody in your spiffy, privileged little cul-de-sac has decorations half as good as his. Tom took pride in his work. He would spend all year devising new works of devilry that scared the hell out of people in town. In any old boring town, he might be considered weird or off in the head, but Farmer Tom was the most popular person in it. All the townsfolk even donated to his cause as well. They would either donate or just straight up buy him supplies he needed to craft things and fill their frightful little town as well as his farm up. Now, when I tell you that his attractions looked real, geez, this man knew how to craft. One year, he created this giant spider structure that was made primarily of wood, but the outside was completely covered in fur. Real fur from real animals. When asked about how he acquired the fur, he claimed that he had bought most of it and had it shipped here, and the rest of it he gathered from random roadkill. Nobody in town questioned him because he had come from a very wealthy family and decided to break away from the big cities where they lived and settle down in the country. I guess he found his perfect fit. He didn't need the town's donations to his cause, but he accepted them because they just wanted to give back to him for all the spooky joy he spread throughout the years. Now, Tom would be gone for an entire 2 months of the year, every single year. All the townsfolk guessed that it was just his well-deserved vacation, or that maybe he was going to see family. He would always leave around July, and come back at the beginning of September. Over the entire month of September, he would be secretly preparing his decorations for the month of Halloween. His best and scariest decorations he ever made also doubled as a good resource to scare off crows too. That's right, you guessed it, scarecrows. And his scarecrows weren't these puffy fat wannabe straw men that had cute noses and a smile that you could just pick up at Walmart. His scarecrows were all different sizes, and he could position them in all kinds of ways. Some would stand, others would be performing some kind of action, like raking a field or chopping a tree. Some would stand guard at the front of his attractions, and others would be in his fields posted up like a normal scarecrow. Nobody messed with these things, mainly because they were creepy as hell, even for a town obsessed with Halloween, but also because it annoyed Tom. One year, a kid no older than 7 had started messing with the straw on one of the legs of a scarecrow. He had managed to tear off most of the hay straws on one leg before Tom discovered it. He shut the farm down to visitors after that for a whole 2 months. The parents of the kid apologized, and he accepted. Ever since then, no one, and I mean no one, screws with him. That was, until the Carter family moved in. They needed some adjustments, but eventually after a month or so, they became a part of the regular town, and I got in the hang of how things worked. That same year, around the end of August, the Carter kid was hanging around his friends, and they mentioned about how Tom would be back soon to prepare his decorations. Now, most people know that kids can be little rebels, and sometimes nigh uncontrollable, but the kids in Hallows Crest knew the rules and followed them well. Tom gave them enough spooky rewards as it was, and knew that if they messed with him, that they would possibly get banned from the farm, have their parents upset at them, and not get any of Tom's candied jerky when they trick-or-treated at his house. The last one was their favorite, the town's favorite food, actually. It tasted so good. Anyway, the Carter boy became curious as well as rebellious, and he didn't care about the consequences because he was new. He just didn't understand. He decided that he would sneak over to Tom's farm when he got back and see just how he made these terrifying creations. He waited until Tom pulled into his driveway one day and followed him down to the woods. Tom had a place in the woods away from everyone else where he prepared. It was a large shack that held his supplies. His workshop, if you will. The Carter boy managed to not be seen by Tom and had ducked near a bush. He was just about to try to find a window to try and peer through when Tom walked out the front door, got in his blue pickup truck, and headed back to his farm. He must have forgotten something because he was pissed off, huffing and puffing when he left. The boy peered out of the bush to check if the coast was clear, and he bolted to the front door of the shack once he had seen the last bit of blue from the truck dash over the hill. In his fit of annoyance, Tom must have left the door unlocked, so the boy let himself in. The shack was large on the inside. He had seen stacks of various wood and other materials neatly laying on one side of the room, with multiple pegboards of hanging tools. Tom had bins of random clothes that he decorated his scarecrows with, everything from kid clothes to grown adults. There were also piles of fur and other animal parts like claws, hooves, beaks, and other things that wouldn't rot. In a room towards the back were 5 large deep freezers. In them were containers of fake blood and animal parts. The boy was just about to leave in fear of Tom coming back when he heard strange moaning. It sounded like the type of moaning someone does when they're in pain or when someone just wakes up. But there were many moaning sounds coming from somewhere. He just wasn't sure yet. The boy followed the moaning noises to a large rug in the center of the room with all the supplies in it. It was right below him now. The boy curiously moved the rug and found a big trap door. For some reason it wasn't locked. He either thought that Tom didn't need a reason to lock it, or that he never thought it would be found by anyone else. He slowly lifted it. There were a set of stairs under the door that led down to another level, into what looked like a dingy handmade basement. At the end of the stairs, there was a door that simply read, "Scarecrows." The boy opened the door slowly and hesitantly. What he saw was ungodly and disturbing beyond all measure. There were people, naked people, all tied to posts, at least 20 or more, and they all had tubes inserted into their noses, feeding them. There were also IVs in their hands that connected them each to some kind of narcotic drug. They were alive, if you could call it that, and producing an eerie moan like they were in pain. Tom had only given them enough drugs to render them helpless, like zombies, so they were able to be in a state of hazy consciousness. The Carter boy ran out as fast as he could and bolted back to the town. Somehow, he made it back without alerting Tom to his presence, but he left the door to Tom's shack open. When the town's police went reluctantly to investigate, there was no sign of Tom anywhere. He had fled. The officers investigated the shack and found the people in the basement and the freezers of real human and animal blood, as well as parts. They also discovered the clothes that he used to dress up the scarecrows, along with a small chest above the bin that the boy either couldn't see or reach. Inside the chest were countless IDs of the people he had kidnapped and killed. There were more than 200 IDs. Needless to say, our little town got a rebranding and decided that 1 month a year was good enough. But nobody, not even farmers, make scarecrows anymore. "I got something for you," Barry said. It started in a rundown pub in East London. David was losing everything. The breakdown had cost him his job. His wife had taken full custody of his daughter and was now living with some damned postman. A postman. David was once a millionaire MD, and he'd been dumped for a postman. Now he spent his time in East London dives, lamenting over everything he'd lost. And it was all because of her, Ashley Miles. That was her maiden name, of course, and that was what she called herself now. And his daughter is now called Chloe Miles. She wasn't Miles. She was an Edwards. Chloe Edwards, not Chloe Miles. Just saying the name Miles made him sick. And the postman was called Fabio Gallardo. And no way was his daughter taking an Italian name off an Italian bum. He drowned himself in whiskey. It was all he had. He desperately missed his life before the bottom fell out. Sat opposite him was Barry, his oldest friend, his biggest confidant through all of this. Barry was all he had. But Barry was strange, and Barry could be hateful when he wanted to be. "The trick-or-treat hotline," Barry said. "What's that?" David replied. "It's called the trick-or-treat hotline." "What is that? This a joke? What day is it today?" "Wednesday," David said. No. The date." "The 23rd, David replied. "They only open between the 20th and 31st of October every year. It's a trick-or-treat hotline." Barry slid David a card. The card was plain white with an orange pumpkin embroidered on it, and when you flipped it, there was a phone number. "Trust me," Barry said. David sat on it for a few days and did his usual boozing, but as the cutoff date neared closer and closer, he couldn't resist calling, just to see what they're about. He remembered the parting shot from Barry in the pub. "They're not cheap," Barry said as he was drunkenly getting into a taxi. David was one of the few people in the country that still had a landline. Nobody had landlines anymore, besides for business. Everybody had gone mobile, but David picked up his landline phone connected to the wall and dialed. A woman's voice answered, perky and customer servicey.
"Hello, and welcome to the trick-or-treat hotline,"
she said in a bubbly tone. I was given your number to, forget it, David said. He slammed the phone down. He poured himself another drink. The phone rang back. David exhaled nervously and picked it up. "Hello, this is David Edwards," David said. Why did you just give them your name? He thought. It was a man this time, gruff and harsh, like a drill sergeant in the movies.
"Did you just call?"
The voice said. I did, but wrong number.
"What did you want?"
Something about a trick or treat, David said. What the hell?
"To who?"
The voice said back. My ex-wife, my current wife, I mean. She's divorcing me. The line went quiet. Hello? David said.
"Trick or treat?"
What does that mean?
"You don't know what trick or treat means?"
The voice said. Not in this context, no.
"Then say one."
Trick.
"Well, that means that she gets a trick and you get a treat."
Okay, fine. Trick.
"That's fine, sir.
How much?
The first one is on us. Call us next year and maybe we'll charge you. But this one is on us."
David paused.
"Now, I just need to take some details from you. Let's start with your wife's name."
The voice continued. David proceeded to tell the authoritative voice on the phone his own personal life story. The story of doomed romance, the betrayal, the cheating, the internal emotional anguish which has doomed David to this day, the tipping point, going into work and beating some T-boy to near death, losing his daughter, everything. By the time the conversation ended, David looked down and saw the stream of tears on his sleeves.
"We'll be in touch,"
the voice said. Ashley had just dropped Chloe off at school and was slightly speeding down the school lane at 40 miles an hour in a 30 when a masked man in a hooded gown jumped out into the road with a baseball bat and caused Ashley to swerve. She shouldn't have been speeding. She should have seen the thing emerge well in advance, but that wasn't what killed her. What killed Ashley was the fact that she didn't put her seatbelt on and that she plowed into 3 parked cars and finished off wrapping the car around a lamppost. A witness swore that they heard the gowned figure yell "trick" before fleeing, but it wasn't their fault. Ashley was driving like an idiot and not wearing her seatbelt. The time and date of death? The 31st of October, 8:27 a.m. David went to the front door and was surprised to see a FedEx man. The FedEx man had a blackened smile and scars zigzagging across his face. But David was still glad it was a courier and not the postman. He had a newfound hatred for postmen. He took the box and went into his house. He opened it and saw the words "treat" on a small card within the box. Besides that, the box was empty. But it wasn't really empty. Not to David. David knew what was really inside that box. It was her. It was her transparent being. David knew that and could feel it within him. His treat was her soul. Right there in an empty FedEx box. That was his treat. The phone on the wall began to ring. Allison's favorite holiday was Halloween. Even at the age of 21, she never grew out of the Halloween spirit. She still dressed up in scary costumes, went to pumpkin patches with her friends, and even enjoyed the horror movie marathons that played all October long. But this Halloween was a little different. Because of her demanding career in pharmaceuticals, Allison was now living in a small town in Pennsylvania that was over 2 hours away from her family and friends. That meant most holidays and birthdays she spent celebrating alone. However, being the optimist that she proudly was, she decided that this Halloween she was going to thoroughly enjoy herself, despite being away from family and friends. These were her exact thoughts that Halloween evening as she made her way up the path to her front door. Kids in costumes were shouting for joy houses down as the neighbors handed out candy. She hurried her pace, not wanting to miss the joy of giving candy out to the trick-or-treaters. Allison unlocked her front door and opened it. Before she stepped in, there, shoved under her welcome mat, was a white envelope. Curiously, Allison bent over and picked it up. There was no return address and only 2 words written on the front: for Allison. Wondering who would have left this here, she tore open the envelope, pulled out a letter, and began reading it. Dear Allison, how are you? I hope all is well and you're enjoying your new home. I'll keep this brief because there isn't much time. Tonight, Halloween night, be sure by 10 p.m. to lock all your doors and windows, and whatever you do, do not answer your door after 10 p.m. I don't care what you hear or what you think you hear. Do not open your door. Things beyond both our comprehension will occur, and you must not open the door at any cost. Please heed my warnings. I only wish for your well-being. Be safe, stay strong, and do not open your door after 10 p.m. With love, your Aunt Cynthia. Allison read and reread the letter. She glanced up and down her street, trying to identify a prankster or mischief. She didn't have time to worry about this poor attempt at a cheap scare. Not only did she not have an Aunt Cynthia, but the trick-or-treaters were only 3 houses away, and she needed to prepare the candy bowl. It was her first Halloween in this neighborhood, and she wasn't going to be the neighbor who neglected the children their sugar rush. She made her way inside, her mind quickly occupied with the Halloween joy, trick-or-treaters, and a night of handing out candy. Any thoughts of ominous warnings and cheap scares were long gone. By 9:15 p.m., Allison's candy bowl was nearly empty. Despite being all alone, she was having a great Halloween night. She bounced back and forth from answering the trick-or-treaters and watching the horror movie marathon on TV while enjoying a glass of red wine. By 9:45, she decided to call it quits. There hadn't been a trick-or-treater for nearly an hour. This was a young neighborhood after all, and most of the kids were all sugared out and in bed. Plus, John Carpenter's Halloween was the next movie on TV, and she didn't want to miss 1 second of that. She quickly got up and went to turn off her front porch light, signaling to any trick-or-treaters out there that she was closed for business. As she made her way to the front door, she noticed that it was 10 p.m. The letter's ominous warning came flooding back to her memory, but in her wine-induced state of being, she simply laughed at the poor attempt of a scare. As her hand went to the switch that would turn off her front porch light, there was suddenly a knock at the door. "Trick or treat," Allison heard from the other side of the door. She reached for the doorknob and almost opened it. Almost. There was something odd about the voice. Something off. Allison cleared her throat. Sorry, all out of candy." She expected whoever was at the door to go away. What she did not expect was to see her doorknob begin to turn. She quickly turned the lock and slid the deadbolt across. "I said I'm all out of candy. I'm sorry. Try another house." Silence hung there like a dense fog. "Allison, open the door." The wine buzz she was enjoying all night dissipated. She took a step back and pulled out her phone. "If you don't leave, I'm calling the police," There was another long, drawn-out pause. "Allison, we both know that they can't help you." Her front door shook violently, the frame siding even beginning to splinter. Wood chips spilled to the ground. In a haste, she dialed 911. When she painstakingly explained her situation, the violent attempt to break in ceased. There was an eerie calm. Allison sprinted into the kitchen and grabbed a steak knife. She opened her front door an inch to see if the maniac was still there, and that's when she saw the red and blue flashing lights. Cop cars and ambulances were scattered on the street and lawn of her next-door neighbor's house. She opened her door wider to analyze the situation. A cop came sprinting over to her. "Ma'am, please lock all your doors and windows and stay inside for the night." Allison obliged, but not before noticing that the officer's uniform was covered in dark red. She relocked her door and sat on her living room couch, waiting for sleep to come. It never did. The next morning, the local news had the answers to Allison's questions. The newscaster was calling it the Halloween Massacre. Allison's next-door neighbors, the Doyles, were mutilated beyond recognition. They were a family of 6, a mom, a dad, and 4 kids, all gone from this earth. What was worse, the newscaster explained, was that there were no fingerprints, no DNA, or any other forms of evidence left behind. Just a family massacred, with no explanation of how. Allison watched the news unfold throughout the morning, tears stinging her eyes. She scrambled through the kitchen trash until she found it, and the letter left on her mat. She dialed her mother, burning with questions. "Do I have an Aunt Cynthia?" There was a pause.
"Allison, is everything all right? Where is this coming from?"
"Just answer the question. Do I have an Aunt Cynthia?" Allison heard her mother gulp.
Well, technically, yeah."
"Who is she? Why have I never met her?" Her mother sighed.
Sweetie, Cynthia was my younger sister. When she was born, her neck caught around the umbilical cord. She suffocated."
Allison froze to the spot, her aunt's letter in her hand. That's when she noticed that there was more writing on the back that she hadn't noticed before. She turned the letter over and read, "Sweetie, there has always been good and evil on the earth. It's up to us to protect our loved ones from the evil. We've never met, not in this life, but I am the guardian of your life. That's what family does. Stay blessed, Allison, and stay safe." Allison folded the letter to her chest. Her Aunt Cynthia was her guardian angel. "Am I going to be charged with murder?" The detective sighed and didn't answer. His eyes were tired, haunted. "Just help us get to the bottom of this," he said. "Okay," I answered. "I'll do my best." I could hear the tremor in my voice. I hadn't stopped shaking since it happened. I'd had a strong drink to settle my nerves, and it hadn't worked. "Let's start at the beginning," said the detective. "You were having a Halloween party." Yeah. We do it every year. We take turns hosting, and the whole block participates. This year, it was our turn." "So you're the one who set up the decorations?" "Yeah. Oh, God, I know that sounds bad, but it wasn't just me. It was lots of people. I was mostly just supervising." "Can you give me a list of who was involved?" Yeah, it was, I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. Just give me a moment to calm down. I can give you the list." "That's all right. We can come back to that." Okay. So who was it that set up the scarecrow? It was me, but... Oh, hell. I mean, I didn't do that. I set it up the night before. Someone must have come in during the night and... Oh, God. The room swayed, and my breath came sharp and fast. My heart ratcheted up its pace to breakneck speed, and darkness began to close in around my vision. "Hey," the detective said. "Just calm down. You're hyperventilating. Take a nice, long, deep breath." I did as he said. My heart slowed, but the panic remained. "Thanks. Do you think you can keep going?" Yeah, just give me a moment." My body convulsed with tremors, but in a few minutes, they had settled down to a mild shaking in my hands. I gulped down a hard knot in my throat. "Okay, I'm ready." "So, the scarecrow," the detective prompted. The word filled me with dread. "The scarecrow," I repeated numbly. "It's a Halloween tradition." "The neighbors said as much. You destroy it every year?" "Yeah. Usually it's filled with candy and straw, like a piñata. The kids beat it with sticks, and everyone has a good time. I just don't understand. God, why would someone do that?" "It's too early to speculate," said the detective. "Right now, we're just gathering the facts. When did you notice that something was wrong?" "Well, right away I noticed that the scarecrow wasn't coming apart as easily as it should have. But I just thought that I had put it together too well, so I grabbed a stick and... Yeah? I took a swing." The detective leaned forward. "And then what happened?" My shoulders slumped. My mouth was cottony and dry. "And then the scarecrow began to bleed, and..." There was a pregnant pause. The detective's eyes bored into mine, willing me to continue. He said nothing, and I had to fill the silence. It fell over. The hat came off, and we saw that it was a body." "What happened then?" "The kids started screaming. One girl started it, the Oakley girl, I think, and then they all went off. We, the other parents and I, we pulled them all away. We called the police, and, well, that's it. You know the rest." The detective scribbled his last note and closed the fold-top notebook he'd been writing in. His eyes were hard, dull gray stone, impossible to read. When he spoke again, his words were measured, careful. His voice was soft. "What interests me, Mr. Johnson, is that you haven't asked about your wife." The question caught me completely off guard. My wife? She's out of town." "Oh God, she's gonna freak out when she finds out what happened. She hates the block Halloween party enough as it is." "Your wife is out of town?" prodded the detective. The question poked a fresh wound. Yeah, I said, forgetting my fear in a moment of irritation. "She and my son are spending the holiday with their parents in Virginia." "That seems strange," the detective said. "A family spending a holiday apart?" I got the feeling he knew something more than he was letting on. "Have you talked to her?" "I'd like to hear your side." My wife and I are going through a rough patch right now, but I don't see why this is relevant." "It's our job to gather all the information," he said. "Then we can decide what is and is not relevant. Why was your wife not spending the holiday with you?" I sighed. I wasn't proud of it, but I was getting flustered. I could feel hot blood rising to my face. We're separated. Why is that? It's personal. Your wife said that it was related to infidelity? So you have talked to her? We have. Fine. I cheated on my wife. I destroyed our family. It's all my fault. Now I've had a hell of a day, so if you don't mind, can you please tell me what the hell this has to do with anything? The detective paused. He spoke softly. Your wife is in police custody, Mr. Johnson. What? I'm sorry to have to tell you, but she has rendered a full confession. A full confession? For what? What the hell are you talking about? It happens occasionally in cases of separation. One party feels the need to punish the other. Unfortunately, the children are sometimes used as a tool to that end. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. The room swam. Bile rose in my throat. Oh, God. Oh, God, no. I am afraid we have positively identified the remains as belonging to your son, Ben. The scream died in my throat, and I blacked out.